Jane.
So as Steve mentioned, I had the privilege of working on both the 2023 Blue Ribbon Commission report, which was on the functioning of the board itself, and really arose from the very rapid refreshment that boards were doing at the time. So there were a lot of new people on boards. Boards were trying to deal with that, and the Blue Ribbon Report tries to strengthen the relationships of the board. So that was 2023. The bookend to that, the 2025 report says, now that we've strengthened the board relationship, let's take a look at the most important relationship that there is, which is between the board and the CEO, and let's try to strengthen that. So Wayne's done a great job in kind of profiling through what the BRC report for 2025 says. It's so inherently important now because of the speed and rapidity of change. Those of you from Austin are dealing with fast growth companies. Those of you in Houston are dealing with regulatory risk, commodity price risk, et cetera. So having everybody on the same page matters greatly in this kind of environment. The board also kind of makes a distinction or combines trust and oversight. And what I would say is a lot of people think that that is a binary choice. You either provide oversight or you're trustworthy. And I think that's a really false binary. And so what I would say is trust without oversight is complacency, and oversight without trust is surveillance. So Wayne mentioned the toolkit, and you're all going to get a copy of the report, and you've got the QR code and everything. But one of the questions in the toolkit is deceptively simple. It is, do your questions in the boardroom signal engagement or interrogation? So kind of the underpinning of trust is, are you framing it from curiosity and wanting to know, or from a gotcha perspective? So before we go any further, we thought it would be fun to do some interactive things on this board, so I'd ask you to all please make your hands available. So the first question I have for you is, how many of you sit on boards that have had at least one new board member in the last 5 years? Excellent. Please keep your hands up. Yes, you can put 2 hands up if you want. How many of you, show of hands, or you can put your hand down if it's not you, in how many of those situations did your board explicitly frame not just how you were going to onboard the new director, but how the board itself was going to adapt and change to accommodate the new director? So we're great at bringing talent onto the board, and Russell Reynolds and others are really good at helping us with that. We're not so great at integrating that talent once we have it. So if you think about sports, when you change the players on the field, you can't expect yesterday's playbook to run the same way. So that kind of underpins philosophically where we're going to go in this discussion.
Yeah, and Jane, just maybe to add a point here, one of the, I think, big ahas when you read this report is that there's not anything like radically new where you said, gee, I've never thought of that. But if you look at Jane's exercise a couple of moments ago, everyone knows probably what needs to be done, but we're not practicing with intention. And that's what the report more broadly, and then the toolkits are meant to do, is to help provide practices around the accountability of good hygiene to build trust across a broad spectrum of activities.
One of the, well, this report is extraordinarily timely. For those of you who are familiar with the Edelman Trust Barometer, it measures trust across every aspect of society. And not surprising, if you wake up every morning and read the newspaper, trust is at an all-time low across all aspects of society. Business, government, our own families. The first, you talked about there's not an aha. There was an aha for me. When you read the first, almost the first statistic, when you read this report, it will tell you that only 37% of the CEOs questioned in this report, only 37% of the CEOs believe that the boards have their back. Can you imagine being a football player and going onto the field and only 37% of the football players think that their coaches have their back? Or your soldiers thinking that only 37% of the generals have their back? So if that is indeed correct, or even if it's only 50%, directionally, when you were CEO, how would that feel if you felt that if you didn't feel that the board had your back?
Well, Steve, let me just say what's also true is that if you survey board members, they also believe that they don't have the CEO's back to a lesser degree than CEOs believe. So I think both boards and CEOs are raising this issue that there is a gap in trust and then a gap in perception between the CEO and boards more broadly. I would not have been happy if I didn't feel like the board had my back. But what I also recognize is that it was something I had to do to build on an ongoing basis. When I became CEO, literally the 1st of February of 2020, so if you guys can think back to what was happening at that time, I think the stock market peaked on the 19th of February, and the 1st of March, the pandemic was becoming a reality. But one of the first things I wanted to do was actually to go and break bread with every one of my directors where they lived and understand what are their issues and concerns. What am I planning to do as the CEO, and truly build a different relationship than maybe I had as a C-suite member, before coming in. And so I think no one would say, yes, I like the fact that I don't have a trusting board, but doing the work to actually build those strong relationships matters a lot. And then what I would say, Steve, is the transparency that follows, because one of the great things I heard was give us the good, the bad, and the ugly on a very regular basis. That transparency then reinforces back to what Jane was talking about, not just we are building intimacy in our relationship, but you can count on me to tell it to you straight about what's going on in the company.